are fewer people getting married. There are fewer people having children, which generally, but not always, happens in the context of marriage. But there are also fewer people entering into even casual relationships. Like, according to the General Social Survey, about 1 in 3 men have not had any sex in the last 12 months, which has tripled from the rate 10 years ago. So 1 in 3 men under 30 are functionally invisible in the sexual marketplace. That's a very sensitive time in the game of mating and dating, between 20 and 30, right? So we know that relationships are in a decline, which is actually kind of strange because it seems like it has never been easier with the uses of certain technologies to get into relationships. So it's a little counterintuitive, right? So there's a number of reasons why this is happening, okay? You focused specifically on successful individuals, and that is on some level part of the issue. So one dimension of this is that women increasingly are using their 20s to not prioritize getting into long-term relationships. On the whole, they're either prioritizing, let's say, fun, hedonistic pleasure like travel or short-term relationships, or their education and their career, okay? And this delays them seeking and finding long-term relationships until later in life. And this is potentially problematic for a number of reasons. First of all, the game of mating and dating shifts significantly at age 30. Age 30 is basically when the average man's sexual marketplace value exceeds the average woman's sexual marketplace value for the very first time, and it will never reverse after that point. So in their 20s, women enjoy a relative advantage in the game of mating and dating, and that advantage comes with certain privileges that, if they're exploited, make it easier to secure relationships on their terms. But if they wait until after 30, when the balance of power kind of shifts, they find that it might be surprisingly difficult to secure relationships on their terms. Now that the men become increasingly powerful after that point, they are able to more secure relationships on their terms. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. And
Hello guys, Message in a Bottle here, and I hope you enjoyed that clip. And I've been messing around with video editing software, and I still have so much to learn. I guess from now on I'll start making YouTube videos with my personal computer. Before I used to do it on the cell phone, which I mentioned that before. And don't get me wrong, doing it on the cell phone, I feel like a lot of YouTubers out there, they've been doing that as well. But doing it on the computer, it's much more easier and makes things more simpler once I get the video editing part, the hang of it. So yeah, I just need to practice. The clip that you just saw was my personal favorite psychologist that I like to watch his videos. His name is psyc-hack. I will leave a link of his channel down in the description below. And I encourage you guys to watch it because the way he describes things, he put it in a very simplistic terms that it's easier to understand. And I just love how he explains things because it makes you realize that why people do a certain, certain ways or certain things. And in this context, he's talking about relationships, so it makes sense what he's describing when he put in simplistic terms. But some of the stuff that I've been knowing, it he's sort of like echo it that I already know, such as attraction. You can't really negotiate attraction. If a woman does not like you, then she will not like you, no matter how hard you try to convince a woman to like you. And some of those lessons that I learned, it has been consistent wherever I looked, unless of course a scholar is lying to you, and which I feel like that does happen. I feel like scholars do lie to you. Now, this picture that you guys see here about the phenomenon, um, Hagmaxxer, I sort of encourage it, but at the same time I discourage young guys to get married because I feel like they need to first dip their toes in the dating market. And I know some guys dislike hearing that term dating market as if it's something to buy or sell. But in reality, what one of the life lessons that I learned is sometimes life is itself it's like a business. You gotta realize that everything is transactional, no matter what. Even when it comes to romance, romance itself is transactional. If you guys think about it, and ironically, I'm not considered a Gen Z. I'm sort of a Gen Z, and I say the word sort of because technically, if we're going by the year, I was closely born around that year where Gen Z starts. But on paper, I'm technically a millennial. And the irony about this picture that I'm showing you guys is that me as a millennial, I done this. In my previous video, I talked about that I dated an older woman, and because I dated an older woman, her experience, her personal life story, her experience that she tells me, what she'd done in her past before she met me, sort of passed down as a wisdom, a type of wisdom towards me. And I feel like passing down this type of wisdom could do the same for younger guys when they date an older woman. And I sort of encourage this because a lot of guys should be, best way I can put it, be exposed of why a woman failed in their own relationship, especially when they're younger, why a woman failed to secure a relationship when they were younger. And once they get this exposure, and this is where I discourage marriage. Like, don't get married, especially to an older woman. Once they get exposed of this, they could dip out and understand why these type of women are not married, especially when they were younger. In my case, I learned a lot about my ex and her past, and all I gotta say is that everything was definitely part of her fault. Not the other guy's fault, definitely part of her fault, especially for not trying. The saddest part is that some of the stories that she described, it sounded like she sort of tried, but she left it halfway, if that makes sense. And when she left it halfway, she decided to throw in the towel and not bother. And of course, that's when she breaks up, and the cycle sort of continues from there. And the funny thing is, when the more I think about it, she refers relationship as if it's sexual. And me, in my personal opinion, I'm not sure about you guys, but please leave a comment down below. When it comes to relationship, I'm pretty sure you could practice a certain level of chastity, and there's no need the relationship for itself to be sexual until, of course, you get married. But every time when my ex talks about relationship, she talks about it as if relationship has to be sexual no matter what. And she told me that she was in a relationship back when she was in late middle school, which surprised me. I was like, "Whoa, wait, that far? Like that early?" And she told me that, "Oh no, we didn't really sleep with each other." But for some reason, I feel like that was a sense of lying because a little after she told me about that, she was also describing her other relationship and eventually her one night stands. And at the time when I was dating her, she claims to be quote unquote a little asexual, even though eventually we slept with each other. And I have a gut feeling that she used the asexual part as a cover up of her hedonistic past, which is why I showed the clip of the psychologist of how women in their younger years they chase after hedonistic pleasure of traveling, short term relationship, and careers. And my ex, she did all that. She did all that. She traveled to Europe. She definitely had boyfriends, and she definitely had a college degree, graduated college. The great irony, though, is that she never put that college degree into use. So she's a prime example of a person, or should I say, an upper class individual, graduate college and never put that college degree in use. So it's basically, by definition, a piece of paper. And this, all this kind of gave me a wisdom of what should I look after when it comes to women. Like, what should I look for in a romantic relationship? What should I look for in a partner? And despite that my relationship failed, it was sort of my fault for trying to convince myself that this could work out, but it shouldn't. And this is where this picture that I'm using is coming in. Basically, what I'm trying to persuade is younger guys date older women, for they could understand why these older women failed in relationship when they were younger. And sometimes when you get to know somebody, you get to know why they're in that situation. They'll try their best to cover up their failures, like anyone does. Like, whenever we feel ashamed of our failures, we tend to cover it up, not talk about it, etc., etc. But when you get into a relationship with someone, little by little, you start to notice it and you start to understand why the way they are. Well, guys, I hope this video makes sense to you. And thank you for listening, and I'll end it right here. Goodbye.